Good evening. Welcome to tonight's discussion entitled Lifestyle versus Play. It's a private discussion for members only. That's members of Life's Hierarchy. Tonight your presenters are me, Sadi, and Slavel.
Good evening.
We are a middle-aged professional couple living together in a 24/7 DS lifestyle relationship. I'm an experienced dominant and owner, and Slavel is a well-trained slave of 3 years standing. We love our lifestyle and we like talking to other people about it, particularly people like you, dear listeners, who are interested in this interesting lifestyle. I'm also a mentor on and a moderator of Life's Hierarchy, whilst Slavel is a mentor and active supporter of Life's Hierarchy community. For those who don't know, premium members of Life's Hierarchy have access to a mentor that can answer their questions, help them through issues, and generally help them get going on a solid and productive DS relationship. It's worth having a look on the website. Just a word of caution, or a few words of caution. No participant in this discussion is an expert. We consider ourselves students rather than teachers. We are certainly not the fonts of all knowledge. We do not claim that the content of this discussion is comprehensive. The purpose of the discussion is simply to explore an interesting issue and encourage listeners to explore some more after the discussion is over. The members of Life's Hierarchy encourage free speech. We also, however, encourage respect for each other, and we play the ball and never the man, or woman for that matter. This is the first session in a series which involves experienced DS lifestylers, Sadi and Slavel, sharing their journey, providing their insights, and answering the questions of Life's Hierarchy members on a range of topics relating to dominance and submission. Each discussion provides entertainment and education, drawing on our life experience, the experience of others, and some science. A prize for anybody who can spot the typo there. So today's agenda is around the topic of lifestyle versus play. We're going to start with some insights provided by Slave L and myself, and then we're going to answer some questions from our members. So let's get started. Okay, some insights. So tell me, Slave L, would you describe our relationship as a lifestyle or play?
It's definitely a lifestyle.
And why would you say that?
Because it encompasses everything we do. We don't just turn it on and turn it off, when we choose. So we're not contrary about it at all. And in saying so, though, I'm not saying that there isn't elements of play within the lifestyle, but overall, it's our whole lifestyle.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I think we're definitely I know we're in a lifestyle because it pervades every aspect of our lives. And play infers something, to me at least, that happens from time to time. It's equally valid, but it's something that happens from time to time. And our relationship doesn't happen from time to time. It is truly a 24/7 thing from the moment we wake up in the morning till the moment we go to sleep, and probably continues while we are asleep. So it's definitely a lifestyle. It impacts every aspect of our lives, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So how does the lifestyle work in your mind, Slavel? How would you describe it to members?
Well, I suppose our lifestyle is organised by a set of rules and protocols that we initially agreed upon together, and which are modified as our life has changed. So it's a rule of rules and protocols, which importantly has a dominant person and Sir D and myself as the submissive. So the rules and protocols are bound by that particular lifestyle preference.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we certainly have very clear rules and protocols. We certainly have very clear expectations of each other. It is very clear who makes the decisions, and it is very clear who must obey and what things must be obeyed and what the consequences of not obeying is. As we said earlier, it's a 24/7 thing. It imbues all aspects of our life, at least our non-working life. We neither of us carry it on into our daily occupations. We both have regular occupations, sitting at a desk and working away. And in that environment, there's very little evidence that we live a DS lifestyle. But once we get out of that working environment, almost every aspect of our life is governed by these rules and protocols and a clear hierarchy. We together started life's hierarchy, and we started it on the basis that hierarchy works for some people, and in our view, it works well for us. Wouldn't you say that?
Yes, certainly
Slavel?
does.
Okay. And how exactly does the dominance and submission dynamic work, Slavel?
Well, my owner, Sir D, he takes charge, and I follow the rules. I mean, it's sort of. I suppose. Do you want to give me another, extra question so I can get more specific, maybe?
Well, I mean, I guess in part we've answered some aspects of this question, but it's really about one person setting the rules and the other person following the rules. It's about one person making the decision and the other party wearing that decision, following the requirements of that decision. It's quite clear in our household that the decisions are made by me and that they are followed by Slavel, and it's equally clear that if she follows them, she will get love and support, or she'll get love either way, but she'll get support. If she doesn't follow them, then there are consequences of that kind of behaviour. It is a relationship that might externally be viewed as misogynistic, in the sense that it is the male leading the show. That said, the same dynamic is equally valid if a female is leading the show in another environment. And again, I go back to the point that it is very much about a hierarchy and being true to that hierarchy. And just to provide some insights into those rules, Slavel doesn't wear clothing when she's in the house. She isn't wearing clothing now, whereas I am. She needs permission to enter a room that I'm in. She needs permission to use the toilet. She needs permission to do most things. I don't restrict her social life, but she needs permission to be involved in anything outside of our day-to-day life. Every aspect of her life is tightly controlled and managed by me, her owner, and we both treat it as a relationship in which slave L is property and I own that property as I do other possessions. Would you have anything to add to that?
Yes, and it sounds that it's all one way, but it's not, because in part, the greed part is that I do get looked after from, my health. I get looked after with my, where I live. I get help with my budgets and achieving my aims and goals. I've always got someone watching my back, and helping me. And you know, my experiences with vanilla style relationships is that doesn't always happen, you know, but in my relationship with Sir D, that love and support and caring is there, and it's been better than any relationship I've been in the past.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I guess it's why some people might describe this kind of relationship or our kind of relationship as misogynistic, but it's not in the sense that it is a two-way relationship. I'm absolutely supportive of Slavel, and I do everything I can to work with her to make sure that she gets what she wants out of life and that her potential is realised. Certainly I have a great deal of control over that, but also I have a great deal of responsibility. And I don't think a DS relationship or a DS lifestyle would work without both parties placing a higher priority on responsibility than they do on rights. I mean, I might have more rights, but that just means I have a lot more responsibility. And we both have responsibilities to keep the relationship going, as indeed a vanilla couple have responsibilities. But ours are just different. We have very clearly delineated functions and roles in the household, which leads me on to the fourth question here is how would we describe a typical day? And perhaps I could rephrase that question a little and say, well, how does the DS relationship affect our day-to-day life?
Well, I suppose that a typical weekday would be that we both start work early, but prior to work, I've got some domestics that I do around the house, and also one of my duties is to provide a daily report from the previous day, a summary of what's happened, and also to provide a proposed itinerary. Now, that might in some respects sound horrid to some people, but it's actually fantastic, because what it does is it creates a really clear understanding between myself and my owner about what I'm doing, but also in response I hear about what my owner is doing as well. So while it's a rule, what it does is it creates a situation where there's open communication.
Absolutely.
And then if there's some things that my owner's not quite happy with, he's got that clear opportunity to query it. And likewise, if I hear of some situations, say my owner's health mightn't be really good, or what he's up to, I can keep an eye on him, his health and well-being, and also have a greater understanding of his work. So it's mutually beneficial. And then after we go to work, as I say, our work life is our own work life. Like everyone, it doesn't matter what type of relationship you're in. When you get to work, you've got a contractual agreement with your workplace that you fulfil those duties. So we might touch base once or twice during the day, but then after work, when I get home, I've got certain domestic duties that I want to do, which obviously include looking after the house, looking after dinner, doing some other jobs that might be required. Then typically we'll have dinner together, somewhere between 6 and 7, and then after that, it's really in owner's court what he wants to do. And that might be something to do at home. It might be some sort of game. It might be something to do with film or television. It might be going out. So the evenings, apart from the domestics and dinner, are really up to my owner's discretion and what he would like. to do.
And I think the daily report that you talk about provides an interesting insight into our lifestyle. Slavel has to send me a report first thing in the morning, which provides me with her weight, her waist measurements, her dietary behaviour over the previous day, and etc., etc. So I know exactly what she's been doing and what effect it's had on her, which allows me to manage those things. At the same time, she tells me her plans for the day ahead and gets my approval on those plans. I make any changes that I might want to make. It opens another channel of dialogue for us, which is what Slavel said, which is something that perhaps doesn't exist in a vanilla relationship, but works very well in our relationship. I think one of the features of our relationship, which may be a feature of us, but in my experience, it's a feature of the DS dynamic, and I've had several over the years, is that the communication is a lot better than it is because you're much more dependent on each other for things. So what do you think is the most attractive aspect of the lifestyle, Slavel?
I like the intimacy. I also like the security of the relationship. I love the intimacy, and the intimacy is not just sexual. I'm not downgrading that, but the sexuality is really good, but it's also a sense of spiritualism. It's mental, it's physical, and then, as I said, I like feeling secure because we've made a commitment and we're following through with that commitment quite specifically. My experiences in vanilla relationships is people don't think about it as seriously as what you do in a dominant submissive one.
Like most people, I've considered marriage at various points in my life, but never succumbed to the temptation. And if I had to compare what marriage has to offer with what we have to offer, not that they're mutually exclusive, I'd be opting for what we have to offer. We have every time. Marriage to me pulls you into a conservative model, a traditional model, whereas our model is created pretty much by us. We both enjoy hierarchy. We both enjoy having a leader in the house and a follower. We both enjoy the direction it provides, the coordination it provides, the additional communication it provides, the additional intimacy it provides, the extra discipline it provides. It helps that we are highly compatible people, which is an interesting point because in not all DS relationships is there a love component on top of the DS dynamic, but for us there is both. So we are actually in a relationship, a personal, emotional relationship, as well as being in the lifestyle, and that has challenges of its own, which we might talk about in a minute. But I think the bond you build in a DS relationship is probably the best aspect for me. We genuinely are a team. I consider Slavel a possession, something I own, cherish, and have to look after. She considers me her owner, somebody she can depend on to look after her and to hold her when she needs to be held, and to buy her a drink when she needs to have a drink. So how does the lifestyle reward you today, Slavel?
I like the consistency. For me, the consistency and knowing what's going to happen is really good. I like the fact that it's results driven. So we have plans and ideals, and we upgraded the plans periodically, particularly at the beginning of each year. But it makes us actually achieve our plans and goals. And if there's issues, well, then we restructure those plans and goals to try to achieve it. I've found that type of planning is never as significant in a vanilla relationship. Well, that's from my own experiences.
Yeah, and I guess everybody's experience in every relationship is different, and it's hard sometimes to draw the line between what's an effect of the relationship and what's an effect of the kind of people we are and our level of compatibility. But I find it a very rewarding lifestyle. In fact, there is no other way I could or would live, and I've lived this way for almost all of my adult life. And I feel very privileged to own the slave I do own, and be not mistaken. For me, this is no game. I consider Slave L a possession, and I consider myself to be in absolute control of what happens to her every day, and I intend to do that for as long as I live. This is very much a lifestyle. It's very much a long-term commitment. It's very much about the whole day, every day. And other than our work and perhaps our interactions with our our offspring, and siblings for that matter, with those exceptions, the relationship covers every aspect of our lives. And indeed, with my sibling, she is aware of our relationship. In fact, we had a commitment and collaring ceremony, and our closest friends were there. So it's not something we even keep to ourselves, whilst we don't share the detail. Who does share the detail of their relationship? Okay, so why don't we, if I can get this over here, start with some of the questions. So here's the first question from a member. What challenges do you have in maintaining a 24/7 DS relationship? So I think Slave L can start with an answer to this. What are the challenges for us, do you think?
Probably the biggest challenge is time, because certain periods in our life, or across the year, our work can take hold and can be quite evasive. So I think that's the best option. That's probably the biggest from my position, and it's having to negotiate time, both in the relationship, but also actually with my employer and with Sir D's work. And what it does is it makes us very aware of our commitment towards each other, which is no less important than our commitment to our work life, or our family, or our friends. So yeah, time is definitely the biggest challenge.
Well, I would agree. I think time is a big challenge. Not my biggest challenge, but I think time is a big challenge. Again, I wonder about whether time would still be a challenge in a vanilla relationship, given how busy we are. But certainly time is a challenge. For me, the biggest challenge is tiredness. When you, and particularly as the dominant, as the owner, when you get tired, it becomes harder and harder to function, to manage two lives rather than just one. When you're very tired, it's hard enough to manage your own existence. So I think tiredness can be a really big issue for us. And I think it's one of those issues that is more complex because it's a DS relationship. In a vanilla relationship, we might just ignore each other and go and lie down. But in a DS relationship, Slave L still has responsibilities, and I still have responsibilities, and they need to be carried out. So I think that's the biggest challenge. The other challenge, I think, is, for us at least, arises from the DS together with the emotional relationship. The emotional relationship does make DS more complicated, in my view. It does make it harder. In fact, I read something over the weekend saying that the two things are largely incompatible. That is, having a loving relationship and having a DS relationship. We don't find it that way. I don't find it that way. But it does make it that much more difficult. It is more difficult to punish someone that you love. It is more difficult to say no to somebody that you love. Anybody who's got children knows that. It is more difficult to enforce standards and behaviour in general, which is in excess of what you might expect in a vanilla relationship when you love someone. I think there is an added complication there. So I guess what I'm saying, in a sense, I think time is a really big issue. I think tiredness vies with that other one about being in an emotional relationship as well as a DS relationship. Having said that, with all three problems, I think they're just the challenges of life, and you get on with it. So what's our next question? Even though you're in a lifestyle, do you still play, Slavel?
Yes, and definitely, but that's all up to Sir D. We do have actually designated play times during the week, and they're really important because what they do is they get us to focus on our relationship and to try to block out what's going on throughout the rest of the world. So there's nothing wrong with playing, and it would be quite a boring life if you don't play in whatever relationship you are, because
absolutely
playing is so good for your
mental state,
your mental outlook. So you definitely play.
Okay, I obviously agree because I'm involved in the play. And again, tiredness becomes an issue. It's hard to play when you're tired, but I imagine in a vanilla relationship, it's hard to play whatever you play at when you're tired. I mean, we do other fun things which have nothing to do with the DS relationship, and even that's hard to do when you're tired. So these are issues. But I think play is a very good thing for human beings. It shifts your mind into a different place. And that, to me, makes it a bit harder to play if you're a busy person, but it also makes it more important to play. And we do a lot of the things that you might assume with a DS relationship. We do some bondage, and rope work and things like that. So we do have sessions where we get involved. We occasionally attend events with other people where the owners are seated at a high protocol dinner, and the slaves are naked and serving and providing their bodies for the amusement and enjoyment of the others who are present. Which brings me to another issue, which I think is really important to our lifestyle, is that a key element of it is that the slave exists for the owner's pleasure and enjoyment, and is used for that pleasure and enjoyment whenever the owner wants, and that's certainly the case, and in any way that the owner wants, and that's certainly the case in our relationship, and play is a part of that. The next question we've sort of partially answered, so I might sort of put a different spin on it. The question being, are there 24/7 rules and protocols? And quite clearly there are. We've talked about that. But maybe, Slavel, you can give us an insight into what some of those rules and protocols are.
So there's different types of rules that we've agreed on, and some are to do with how I serve Sir D. Others are how I act. Others are to do with my food and diet and exercise. Others are regarding timetables and schedules. So there's a whole range of different types of protocols that I'm expected to follow and obey, and the consequences are, the number one consequence for not obeying the rules and protocols is number one, the disappointment of my own. That's the number one, because I've made a commitment to be a submissive, so I want to please my own. So the number one is disappointment. The two would be a punishment, which is up to my owner's discretion what he chooses to do.
Yeah, we have a fairly comprehensive list of rules and protocols covering most aspects of our lives, and they're reasonably formal, although not absolute. We obviously make allowances for the fact that life does get in the way a bit. I mean, slave has to be naked in the house at all times, but sometimes, like tonight, she has to dash in and out, so therefore sometimes she's wearing clothing in the house because it's just hard to take it off and put it on. So there are accommodations we make for the real world there, but we work as hard as we can to follow the rules and protocols 24/7. Some things that those who have met Slavel would know is that she wears a 24/7 collar that only I have the key to. She wears that all the time to work, everywhere, wherever she goes. Only people within the lifestyle would probably recognise it for what it is, and it has been recognised by people. She's playing with it right now. Has been recognised by people who obviously have some understanding of the DS dynamic. She also has my initials branded into her lower belly and onto her behind. She has piercings through her nipples and through her clitoris. And she has to keep her body to certain waist measurements, certain chest measurements, certain hip measurements. She has to stay within a certain weight range. And she is inspected every Wednesday night to make sure that I'm satisfied with the way she's keeping herself, well shaven, bleached, and generally looking in a manner that I approve of and I like. So the weekly inspection on a Wednesday night, coupled with the daily report, gives me very good understanding of where she's at, how she's feeling, and how she's looking, to making sure that she looks the way I want her to look, not the way she wants to look, but the way I want her to look, since it's my requirements that take precedence. And that's the thing about rules and protocols. It's about giving precedence to the owner's requirements. And the final question from our studio audience, our members today, is does life get in the way? And if so, how do you deal with it? Well, I think we've already established that life gets in the way. It does. I mean, when you work long hours, when you have a lot of responsibilities, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you've got, life gets in the way. And sometimes we deal with it well, and sometimes we don't deal with it as well as we could. And I guess, again, that is not a feature of a DS relationship. It's a feature of the world we live in and the relationships we're involved in. But how do you think we deal with life getting in the way, Slavel?
Having the regular communication and formal communication, I think that helps. So
Definitely.
we're constantly communicating, and if there's a particular issue or whatever it is, we're onto the task of adapting as much as necessary. So work can get in the way a lot for both of us, and so we clearly communicate. And if Sir D's busy with work, I then I do other duties while he's busy, or he might allow me to go and visit someone. So I think life gets in the way constantly, and the way we deal with that is to have that constant communication. And that's why the likes of the daily report proposed itinerary works really well, but it's not enough. For example, I've got a friend coming up from the country, and I do, like to see the people, but it's not necessarily when we'd like to see the person. So it's then, okay, let's see how we can work this out so that my owner's life is not too ruffled by that, and I can manage to see the friends. So it's a constant discussion and working out how we can achieve our own personal lifestyle aims but cater for the world that affects us.
I think that's pretty spot on. One of the interesting things I read recently is somebody asked a question in a similar session to this. What happens when the slave is ill? Does the owner look after him or her? And I think that's an interesting question because to some extent, if the owner were to look after the slave, then there'd be some role reversal in there, in a sense, catering for the needs of the submissive. And I'd have to say, absolutely, that's what happens. If slave L is ill, then I do whatever's necessary to look after her, just as she does me if I'm ill. And if she needs some of those things that life requires of us, then I go out of my way to make sure that she gets them, or at least to the extent that I can. And I think it's important to make that point that, again, that just because there's an imbalance of power doesn't mean there's an imbalance of caring, of doing what needs to be done, and it certainly doesn't mean that I'm not supportive. When life gets in the way, I do what I can, as slave L does what she can, to deal with that issue and get back onto track. We often sit down and talk about how life's getting in the way, in what ways it's getting in the way, and how to resolve the issues. One of the things we do on our Christmas break is look at the year ahead and plan for the year ahead and look for some of the things that we'll need to cater for, some of the things that get in the way. And I guess that's no different to people in a vanilla relationship. We just need to do it in a different way. I would certainly like to think I give slave L all the support she needs when she's, off colour or not at her best for physical reasons or psychological reasons or whatever the case might be. So certainly life gets in the way, and if I had to say what's the one thing we do to deal with it, is we communicate. And I do think, and as odd as this might sound, that in addition to our verbal communication, this email communication with the report each day is a very helpful tool. And in fact, so much so that I would think something similar would work well in most vanilla relationships, because it's much clearer to each party exactly what's going on, and they have an opportunity to clarify things which don't always exist in a less formal setting. So that was the last of the questions from our members today. So that in brief is the story of our lifestyle, or at least it's a bit of an insight into how our lifestyle works. If you've got any other questions or queries, if anything we've talked about raises questions in your mind, send me an email, Sadi. The email address to use is thelifeshierarchy@gmail.com address. You email me through that address, and as the moderator, I'll get it, and I'm more than happy to respond to questions. And if you have questions of slave L, I'll have a look at them, and if I think they're appropriate for her to answer, I'll have her answer them as well. So that was the first of a series of discussions, as we said at the beginning of this session. This one was entitled Lifestyle or Play. The next one's entitled Lover and Slave, and it gets into more the dynamic of the emotional together with the DS relationship, something which I touched on, and how we are both lovers and slave. Well, we are both lovers, and I am, and slavel is a slave. This second session will be recorded on March 21st at 7 p.m. Western Standard Time. It'll be posted on Life's Hierarchy the following day. The discussion you've just heard will be posted on Life's Hierarchy in the next 2 or 3 days. Once again, if you have any questions about this session or upcoming sessions, please email lifeshierarchy@gmail.com and I'll be sure to respond. Thanks very much for listening to us ramble on this evening. We look forward to your company again in the future, and please send through your feedback. We'll take it into account so that we can make these sessions more and more entertaining and more educational. We hope that we've given you enough of a taste of what it's all about to come back for more. So, please enjoy living life your way.